Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta-vrinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Jai Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jai Jai Prabhupada. Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki, Shri Harinam Mantra ki, Shri Harinam Prabhu ki, Gaur Premanande, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol. Gracias. Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya, Jai Nityananda. Jai Advaita Chandra, Jai Gaur Bhakta-vrinda. Welcome back everyone. We're continuing our reading here at Govardhan Hill in the holy Dham of Vrindavan. The reading of Srila Prabhupada's Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. We're on the Madhya Lila, Chapter 7, the Lord's Tour of South India. And we'll begin today at texts 131 and 132. While on his tour, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would spend the night at a temple or on the roadside. Whenever he accepted food from a person, he would give him the same advice he gave the Brahmana named Kurma. He adopted this process until he returned to Jagannath Puri from his South Indian tour. Thus I have described the Lord's behavior elaborately in the case of Kurma. In this way you will know Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's dealings throughout South India. Thus Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would remain at night in one place, and the next morning after bathing he would start again. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu left, the Brahmana Kurma followed him a great distance, but eventually Lord Chaitanya took care to send him back home. There was also a Brahmana named Vasudeva, who was a great person but was suffering from leprosy. Indeed, his body was filled with living worms. Although suffering from leprosy, the Brahmana Vasudeva was enlightened. As soon as one worm fell from his body, he would pick it up and place it back again in the same location. Then one night Vasudeva heard of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's arrival, and in the morning he came to see the Lord at the house of Kurma. When the leper Vasudeva came to Kurma's house to see Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was informed that the Lord had already left. The leper then fell to the ground unconscious. When Vasudeva, the leper Brahmana, was lamenting due to not being able to see Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Lord immediately returned to that spot and embraced him. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu touched him, both the leprosy and his distress went to a distant place. Indeed, Vasudev's body became very beautiful to his great happiness. The Brahmana Vasudev was astonished to behold the wonderful mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he began to recite a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam touching the Lord's lotus feet. Kwaham daridra papiyan, kwa Krishna Sri Niketanaha, Brahma Panduriti smaham, bahubhyam parirambita. He said, "Who am I, a sinful poor friend of a Brahmana? And who is Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, full in 6 opulences? Nonetheless, he has embraced me with his 2 arms." This verse was spoken by Sudama Brahmana in Srimad Bhagavatam 1081:16 in connection with his meeting Lord Krishna. The Brahmana Vasudev continued, "O my merciful Lord, such mercy is not possible for ordinary living entities. Such mercy can be found only in you. Upon seeing me, even a sinful person goes away due to my bad bodily odor. Yet you have touched me. Such is the independent behavior of the Supreme Personality of Godhead." Being meek and humble, the Brahmana Vasudeva worried that he would become proud after being cured by the grace of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. To protect the Brahmana, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu advised him to chant the Hare Krishna mantra incessantly. By doing so, he would never become unnecessarily proud. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also advised Vasudeva to preach about Krishna and thus liberate living entities. As a result, Krishna would very soon accept him as his devotee. Purport: although Vasudeva Vipra was a leper and had suffered greatly, still, after Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu cured him, he instructed him to preach Krishna consciousness. Indeed, the only return the Lord wanted was that Vasudeva preach the instructions of Krishna and liberate all human beings. That is the process of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Each and every member of this society was rescued from a very abominable condition. But now they are engaged in preaching the cult of Krishna consciousness. They are not only cured of the disease called materialism, but are also living a happy life. Everyone accepts them as great devotees of Krishna, and their qualities are manifest in their very faces. If one wants to be recognized as a devotee by Krishna, he should take to preaching work, following the advice of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Then one will undoubtedly attain the lotus feet of Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Lord Krishna himself, without delay. After instructing the Brahmana Vasudeva in that way, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu disappeared from that place. When the 2 Brahmanas, Kurma and Vasudeva, embraced each other and began to cry, remembering, Then the 2 Brahmanas, Kurma and Vasudeva, embraced each other and began to cry, remembering the transcendental qualities of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Thus I have described how Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu reclaimed the leper Vasudeva and so received the name Vasudevamrita Prada. Purport: the name Vasudevamrita Prada is mentioned in the verses composed by Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. Thus I end my description of the beginning of the tour of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, his visiting the temple of Kurma and his liberating the leper Brahmana Vasudeva. One who hears these pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with great faith will surely very soon attain the lotus feet of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Purport: when a person actually revives his consciousness with thoughts of Krishna, by the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he revives his spiritual life and becomes addicted to the service of the Lord. Only then can he act as an acharya. In other words, everyone should engage in preaching, following in the footsteps of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In this way, one will be very much appreciated by Lord Krishna and will quickly be recognized by him. Actually, a devotee of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu must engage in preaching in order to increase the followers of the Lord. By thus preaching actual Vedic knowledge all over the world, one will benefit all mankind. I admit that I do not know the beginning or the end of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes. However, whatever I have written, I've heard from the mouths of great personalities. O devotees, please do not consider my offenses in this regard. Your lotus feet are my only shelter. Praying at the lotus feet of Sri Rupa and Sri Raghunath, always desiring their mercy, I, Krishnadas, narrate Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, following in their footsteps. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports to the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila, 7th chapter, describing the start of the Lord's tour of South India and the liberation of the Brahmana Vasudeva. Bravo. Sadhu, sadhu. Jai, jai. Hari, hari. Chapter 8 talks between Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Ramananda Roy. The summary of the 8th chapter is given by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his Amrita Pravaha Bhashya. After visiting the temple of Jayada Nrsimha, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to the banks of the river Godavari to a place known as Vidyanagara. When Srila Ramananda Roy went there to take his bath, Thank you. They met. After introducing himself, Sri Ramananda Roy requested Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to remain in the village for some days. Honoring his request, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu stayed there in the home of some Vedic brahmanas. In the evenings, Srila Ramananda Roy used to come to see Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Ramananda Roy, who was clothed in ordinary dress, offered the Lord respectful obeisances. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu questioned him on the objects and process of worship, and also asked him to recite verses from the Vedic literature. First of all, Srila Ramananda Roy enunciated the system of the Varnashrama institution. He recited various verses about karmarpana, stating that everything should be dedicated to the Lord. He then spoke of detached action, knowledge mixed with devotional service, and finally the spontaneous loving service of the Lord. After hearing Srila Ramananda Roy recite some verses, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted the principle of pure devotional service devoid of all kinds of speculation. After this, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked Ramananda Roy to explain the higher platform of devotional service. Then Srila Ramananda Roy explained unalloyed devotional service, love of Godhead, and serving the Lord in the moods of pure servitude, fraternity, and parental love. Finally, he spoke of serving the Lord in conjugal love. He then spoke of how conjugal love can be developed in various ways. This conjugal love attains its highest perfection in Srimati Radharani's love for Krishna. He next described the position of Srimati Radharani and the transcendental mellows of love of God. Srila Ramananda Roy then recited a verse of his own concerning the platform of ecstatic vision, technically called Prema Vilas Vivarta. Srila Ramananda Roy also explained that all stages of conjugal love can be attained through the mercy of the residents of Vrindavan, especially by the mercy of the gopis. All these subject matters were thus vividly described. Gradually, Ramananda Roy could understand the position of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu exhibited his real form, Ramananda Roy fell unconscious. After some days, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked Ramananda Roy to retire from government service and come to Jagannath Puri. These descriptions of the meetings between Ramananda Roy and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu are taken from the notebook of Swarup Damodar Goswami. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is known as Gauranga, is the ocean of all conclusive knowledge in devotional service. He empowered Sri Ramananda Roy, who may be likened to a cloud of devotional service. This cloud was filled with the water of all the conclusive purports of devotional service, and was empowered by the ocean to spread this water over the sea of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself. Thus the ocean of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu became filled with the jewels of the knowledge of pure devotional service. All glories to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, all glories to Lord Nityananda, all glories to Advaita Acharya, and all glories to all the devotees of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. According to his previous program, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went forward on his tour, and after some days arrived at the place of pilgrimage known as Jayata Nrsinga. Purport: the Jayata Nrsinga temple is situated on the top of a hill about 5 miles away from Visakhapatnam. There is a railway station on the South Indian Railway known as Simachala. The temple known as Simachala is the best temple in the vicinity of Visakhapatnam. This temple is very affluent and is a typical example of the architecture of the area. On one stone tablet it is mentioned that formerly a queen covered the deity with gold plate. This is mentioned in the Visakhapatnam Gazetteer. About the temple there are residential quarters for the priests and devotees. Indeed, at the present moment there are many residential quarters to accommodate visiting devotees. The original deity is situated within the depths of the temple, but there is another deity, a duplicate known as the Vijay Murti. This smaller deity can be moved from the temple and taken on public processions. Priests who generally belong to the Ramanuja Sampradaya are in charge of the deity worship. Text 4. Upon seeing the deity of Lord Nrsinga in the temple, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu offered his respectful obeisances by falling flat. Then, in ecstatic love, he performed various dances, chanted, and offered prayers. Sri Nrsinga, Jai Nrsinga, Jai Jai Nrsinga, Prahlada Desha Jaya Padma Mukha Padma Bringa. All glories to Nrsingadev, all glories to Nrsingadev, who is the Lord of Prahlad Maharaj, and like a honey bee, is always engaged in beholding the lotus-like face of the goddess of fortune. Purport: the goddess of fortune is always embraced by Lord Nrsingadev. This is mentioned in the commentary on Srimad Bhagavatam written by the great commentator Srila Sridhar Swami. The following verse was composed by Sridhar Swami in his commentary on the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam 1087.1. Vagisha yasya vadane lakshmi yasya chavakshasi yasyaste hridaye sambit tam nrsinga maham bhaje. Lord Nrsingadev is always assisted by Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and he is always embracing the goddess of fortune to his chest. The Lord is always complete in knowledge within himself. Let us offer obeisances unto Nrsingadev. Similarly, in his commentary on the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam 1.1.1, Sridhar Swami describes Lord Nrsingadev in this way: Prahlada hridaya ladam bhaktya vidya vadaranam sharadindurachim bande parindra harim. Let me offer my obeisances unto Lord Nrsingadev, who is always enlightening Prahlad Maharaj within his heart, and who always kills the nescience that attacks the devotees. His mercy is distributed like moonshine, and his face is like that of a lion. Let me offer my obeisances unto him again and again. Ugropyanugre vayam sapaktanam rakeshari keshari vasapotanam anyesham ugavikramaha. Although very ferocious, the lioness is very kind to her cubs. Similarly, although very ferocious to non-devotees like Hiranyakashipu, Lord Nrsingadev is very, very soft and kind to his devotees like Prahlad Maharaj. This verse was composed by Sridhar Swami in his commentary on the 7th canto, Srimad Bhagavatam 7.9.1. In this way, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu recited different verses from the Shastra. The priest of Lord Nrsingadev then brought garlands and the remnants of the Lord's food and offered them to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. As usual, a Brahmana offered Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu an invitation. The Lord passed the night in the temple and then commenced his tour again. The next morning, in the great ecstasy of love, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu started on his tour with no knowledge of the proper direction, and he continued the whole day and night. As previously, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu converted to Vaishnavism many people he met on the road. After some days, the Lord reached the banks of the river Godavari. When he saw the river Godavari, the Lord remembered the river Jamuna, and when he saw the forest on the banks of the river, he remembered Sri Vrindavan Dham. After performing his usual chanting and dancing for some time in this forest, the Lord crossed the river and took his bath on the other bank. After bathing in the river, the Lord walked a little distance from the bathing place and engaged in chanting the holy name of Krishna. At that time, accompanied by the sounds of music, Ramananda Roy came there on a palanquin to take his bath. Many Brahmanas followed the Vedic principles accompanied Ramananda Roy. According to the Vedic rituals, Ramananda Roy took his bath and offered oblations to his forefathers. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu could understand that the person who had come to bathe in the river was Ramananda Roy. The Lord wanted so much to meet him that his mind immediately began running after him. Although Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was running after him mentally, he patiently remained sitting. Ramananda Roy, seeing the wonderful sannyasi, then came to see him. Srila Ramananda Roy then saw Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to be as brilliant as 100 suns. The Lord was covered by a saffron garment. He was large in body and very strongly built, and his eyes were like lotus petals. When Ramananda Roy saw the wonderful sannyasi, he was struck with wonder. He went to him and immediately offered his respectful obeisances, falling down flat like a rod. The Lord stood up and asked Ramananda Roy to arise and chant the holy name of Krishna. Indeed, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very eager to embrace him. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then inquired whether he was Ramananda Roy, and he replied, "Yes, I am your very low servant, and I belong to the Shudra community." Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then embraced Sri Ramananda Roy very firmly. Indeed, both the master and the servant almost lost consciousness due to ecstatic love. Their natural love for each other was awakened in them, and they embraced and fell to the ground. Purport: Srila Ramananda Roy was an incarnation of the Gopi Vishaka. Since Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was Lord Krishna himself, there was naturally an awakening of love between Vishaka and Krishna. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the combination of Srimati Radharani and Krishna, and the Gopi Vishaka is the principal Gopi assisting Srimati Radharani. Thus, the natural love between Ramananda Roy and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu awakened, and they embraced. When they embraced each other, ecstatic symptoms, paralysis, perspiration, tears, shivering, paleness, and standing up of the bodily hairs appeared. The word Krishna came from their mouths falteringly. When the stereotyped ritualistic Brahmanas who were following the Vedic principles saw this ecstatic manifestation of love, they were struck with wonder. All these Brahmanas began to reflect as follows. The Brahmanas thought, "We can see that this sannyasi has a luster like the effulgence of Brahman, but how is it that he is crying upon embracing a Shudra, a member of the fourth caste in the social order?" They thought, "This Ramananda Roy is governor of Madras, a highly learned and grave person, a Mahapandit. But upon touching this sannyasi, he has become restless like a madman." While the Brahmanas were thinking this, in this way, about the activities of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Ramananda Roy, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saw those outsiders and restrained his transcendental emotions. Purport. Ramananda Roy was intimately related to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Therefore, he can be accepted as Sajatiya, a person within the intimate circle of the Lord. The Brahmanas, however, were followers of the Vedic rituals and were not able to have an intimate connection with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Consequently, they are called Vijatiya Loka. In other words, they were not pure devotees. One may be a highly learned Brahmana, but if he is not a pure devotee, he is Vijatiya, an outcast, one outside devotional service. In other words, a non-devotee. Although Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Ramananda Roy were embracing in ecstasy, the Lord restrained his transcendental emotions upon seeing the outsider Brahman. Now we'll just take a few reflections or questions. Yes, Devavrata Prabhu. Bless you.
This last chapter, before the meeting with Ramananda Roy, chapter 7, I thought it's full of so many wonderful lessons in preaching. Obviously, there's the direct instructions of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu speaking to the Kurma Brahmana, but also Mahaprabhu's behavior in relationship to Vasudeva Vipra. How he's a leper, or leper Vasudeva, and he wanted to meet Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had just passed, and then when Mahaprabhu understood that he wanted to meet him, Mahaprabhu made it a point to go back and meet the leper, Vasudeva. So I was just thinking in our own preaching how that has to be the mood, that we have to be willing to go out of our way in order to give people the opportunity for them to be connected. If that core sincerity is there, the preacher should be willing to do whatever it takes in order to allow that sincerity to materialize itself on a practical level.
What an excellent point. Thanks for extracting that from that pastime. Well done. Sadhu, sadhu. Anyone else? Mukar Vind.
Maharaj, I had 2.1 is same in the line of what Devrat Prabhu says, because I found that how Prabhupada, the translation was, one who hears this pastime of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with great faith will surely very soon attain the lotus feet of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And in the purport, Prabhupada gave the practical way of what is the meaning of attaining the lotus feet, and then he emphasized that the preaching in order to increase the followers of the Lord, and by preaching actually Vedic knowledge all over the world, one will benefit all the mankind. So he gave the practical meaning of what is, in my understanding, that what is the what is the meaning of having faith, and what is the faith arouse, and what is the practical connection of that faith that who has got the shelter of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So I was just appreciating Prabhupada's genius to make something very practical, the things that looks a little, what is it?
So do you feel like it's a good idea to preach Krishna consciousness all over the world?
Yes, if you want to.
Hari Hari!
And one thing I appreciate, Maharaj, about the verses that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself personally recited, so I can see that how he has himself gone through all Sridhar Swami's commentary and then remembered that verses, and then at the appropriate time recited that verses. And thank you for bringing these verses to ISV. Because of your grace, we got these verses to recite in ISV.
Well, the thing about adding verses to your daily repertoire, one thing is, anything you do every day you might get used to and take for granted. So it's helpful when you add other verses sometimes to some places, in that it's different. It makes a variation, some slight variation. I'm not advocating for changing the morning program, but when you can add some variation and also take time to discuss what we're reciting by rote every day. Because when you do something every day by rote, you might not be aware of what you're even saying. And my father used to work in a repertory theater when he was in college. And he said that the producer would have the actors come on stage off cue, or they would say lines that were different from what was in the actual play. Because in repertory theater, you do the same play over and over again, sometimes for a year or more. And in order for the troupe to not get used to it, he would have them always be aware that anything could happen. Someone might come in stage left instead of stage right, or someone might say a line that wasn't in the script, and that was by design to keep everybody aware. So it can be helpful when we do daily routines. And also, the more we can add significant verses and opportunities to recite things on a daily basis, you get used to it after a while. And it's like when you put a frog, not that I've ever done this, but it's just a thought experiment. You put a frog in a pan of water and you turn it up gradually, then the frog doesn't notice it until it's too late. If you put him in abruptly into hot water, he'll jump right out. So in a similar way, as we continue to add little aspects of verse recitation or extra bhajan to our program, at a certain point you may notice that it's significant and a significant increase, but it's so gradual that you don't notice that it's happening. But the other byproduct is that you just notice by adding these types of verses that are important to certain rituals that we do regularly, that you know them. Like everybody from ISV knew the verse this morning, right? Tvayupa bhukta shraganda vasa lankara charchita utishta bojino dasas tavamayam jayam, because we say it every time before prasadam. And what to speak of these verses, vagisha yasya varane lakshmi yasya chavakshasi, etc., because we added them on. Okay, what else? Any other reflections? Looking at outside people's party, and it looks like we have several takers.
Hare Krishna, Guru.
Fight it out amongst yourselves.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj.
Hare Krishna, Vamsuli.
Guru Maharaj, something we read just now reminded me of a common objection that people give on the book distribution. Sometimes we give books or we invite the people to the temple and they say, Jab Bhagavan ka bulava aayega. That means when the Lord will call, then we will come to the temple, then we will take Bhagavad Gita. But that's not true for them, because the Lord is always calling. And here I was seeing how Lord Chaitanya has a strong desire to meet Ramanand Rai. And it's not that the Lord ran after Ramanand Rai, but Ramanand Rai himself became present to take to give audience to Lord Chaitanya. But the people's objection is not right, because they're not pure devotees like Ramananda Raya. So this is something I was contemplating. Maybe I'm not exactly putting in the right words. Please correct me if I'm wrong.
Will you just tell them that? What do you think, you're Ramananda Roy? Actually, the real trick is don't hand Indians books, because then they'll have an excuse. There's a whole technique where you don't have to hand them the book. Don't hand them anything. First tell them what you're doing and ask for a donation. Then after they give the donation, which they're more than happy to do, then give them the book afterwards. Okay, you already know that. There was two more in the outside people's party.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. This is from our online audience. We have 34 devotees tuned in to Govardhan Studios.
Hare, Hare!
I have their names, if you'd like to know. Manjari Devi Dasi, let me see. Manjari Devi Dasi, Chakuj Venum Prabhu, Atulya Vrindavan Prabhu. And on Facebook we have more. We have Bhaktin Rafaela Divyananda Das, Radha Madan Mohan Boxtel, Sri Antariksha Das, Yugal Hada, And we have Vaikuntha Naik Prabhu and Upasana Mataji.
Hare Hare.
And there is one reflection from Vaikuntha Naik Prabhu. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu can see Yamuna in Godavari and Vrindavan in the forest there. This shows that we see things as we are. Based on our consciousness, we see the world around us. And by your own example, you have shown this. Most mundane things like cat, dead turtle reminded you of Krishna. When you saw a cat in your backyard with new coat last winter, you reflected as to how Krishna takes care of everyone's material needs and wondered why one needs to worry about one's material position at all. Even a dead turtle being eaten by crows in the beach at Puri reminded you of Krishna's arrangement.
Hare Krishna.
And one reflection from Satya Sankalpa Prabhu. Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, thank you very much for showering the nectar.
Con gusto.
Hare Krishna. I was reflecting on the verse 828. In the purport, Prabhupada mentions Sajatiya, those in the intimate circle of Krishna, and the Vijatiya, non-devotees. And I was just reflecting that sometimes there are also nuances within the devotee circle. Sometimes someone may think materially they have a career or they have a high position, that they may be better than another devotee who may not be as so-called educated as them. So, yeah, it's a bit uncomfortable observing that or experiencing that.
Thank you for that observation. It's best if we remain humble, as Lord Chaitanya recommended. Trinadapi sunichena, Torah api sihishna, amanina manadena, kirtaniya sadadhari. Give all respect to other, but don't expect any respect for yourself. And certainly don't feel entitled. Thank you so much. Very important reflection. Is there one more? Okay, inside People's Party. 3, 2, 1, Mahendra Chakadola.
I like the verse Mahaprabhu gave to the instruction he gave to Vasudeva when he was worried that after receiving the mercy and becoming beautiful, he can become proud. And Mahaprabhu said, Kabu tomar na hoive abhiman nirantara koho tumi Krishna Krishna now. So to avoid being, you become never unnecessarily proud if you chant constantly Hare Krishna mantra. So besides Hari Hari, there is also Krishna Krishna.
Krishna Krishna Nam. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. I was reflecting on this point that how to Lord devotional service is more important than caste and creed. Like Brahmanas were also there, but Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he embraced Ramananda Rai, and the Brahmanas were wondering why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is embracing Ramananda Rai. Although from material point of view he belongs to some Shudra caste.
Yeah, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu set that stage for those who would follow the Bhagavatam and the Bhagavad Gita and see that all qualification is based on the sincerity in the heart of the devotees. Viprad Vishad Gunantara Davindanava Padada Vinda Vimukashva Pacham Varishna Manye Chad Arpita Mano Vachane Hitarta Pranam Punati Sakulam Natuburi Mana Hirata Hunanda Pulunda Pulkasha Abhirashumba Yavana Kasadaya Yenesha Papa Yarapashraya Shaya Shrujanti Tasmai Prabhavishnave Namaha. Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmane Gavihastani Shuni Chaiva Shapakecha Pandita Samadarshinaha. Thank you everyone for the reflections. It was edifying to hear how everyone's realizing what's in this treasure of a book. And I'll continue now with the reading at text number 29. Susta hoy donhe she stanite vasila tabe hasi Mahaprabhu kahite lagila. When they regained their sanity, they both sat down, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu smiled and began to speak as follows. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya spoke of your good qualities, and he made a great endeavor to convince me to meet you. Indeed, I have come here just to meet you. It is very good that even without making an effort, I've gotten your interview here. Roy Ramananda replied, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya thinks of me as his servant. Even in my absence, he is very careful to do me good. By his mercy, I have received your interview here. Consequently, I consider that today I have become a successful human being. I can see that you have bestowed special mercy upon Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. Therefore, you have touched me, although I am untouchable. This is due only to his love for you. You are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayan himself, and I am only a government servant interested in materialistic activities. Indeed, I'm the lowest among men of the fourth caste. You do not fear the Vedic injunctions stating that you should not associate with a Shudra. You are not contemptuous of my touch, although in the Vedas you are forbidden to associate with Shudras. Purport. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says at 9:32, Mami parata vyapashritya yepi syu papayonaya striyo vaishas tata shudras te piyanti parangatim. O son of Pritha, those who take shelter in me, though they be of lower birth, women, Vaishyas, merchants, as well as Shudras, workers, can attain the supreme destination. The word Papa Yonaha means born of lower caste women. The Vaishyas are merchants and the Shudras or workers are servants. According to Vedic classifications, they belong to a lower social order. A low life means a life without Krishna consciousness. High and low positions in society were calculated by considering a person's Krishna consciousness. A Brahmana is considered to be on the higher platform because he knows Brahman, the absolute truth. The second caste, the Kshatriya caste, also know Brahman, but not as well as the Brahmanas. The Vaishyas and the Shudras do not clearly understand God consciousness. But if they take to Krishna consciousness by the mercy of Krishna and the spiritual master, they do not remain in the lower caste, Papa Yonaya. It is clearly stated, Te piyanti param gatim. Unless one has attained the highest standard of life, one cannot return home, back to Godhead. One may be a Shudra, Vaishya, or woman, but if one is situated in the service of the Lord in Krishna consciousness, one should not be considered Stri, Shudra, Vaishya, or lower than Shudra. Though a person may be from a low-born family, if he is engaged in the Lord's service, he should never be considered to belong to a low-born family. The Padma Purana forbids Vishate jati samanyat sayati narakam dhruvam. A person goes to hell quickly when he considers a devotee of the Lord in terms of birth. Although Sri Ramananda Roy supposedly took birth in a Shudra family, he is not to be considered a Shudra, for he was a great advanced devotee. Indeed, he was on the transcendental platform. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu therefore embraced him. Out of spiritual humility, Sri Ramananda Roy presented himself as a Shudra, Raja Sevi Vishayi Shudra Dhamma. Even though one may engage in government service or in any other pounds, shilling, pence business, in short, in materialistic life, He need only take to Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness is a very simple process. One need only chant the holy names of the Lord and strictly follow the principles forbidding sinful activity. In this way, one can no longer be considered an untouchable, a Vaisesika or a Shudra. One who is advanced in spiritual life should not associate with non-devotees, namely men in government service and men engaged in materialistic activity for sense gratification or in the service of others. Such men are considered Vaisesika, materialistic. It is said, Niskinchanasya bhagavat bhajano mukhasya param param jagamashur bhavasagarasya sandarshanam vishayanam atayoshitam cha ha hanta hanta vishabhakshanatopya sadhu. A person who is very seriously engaged in cultivating devotional service with a view to crossing the ocean of nescience, and who has completely abandoned all material activities, should never see a Shudra, a Vaisya, or a woman. Sri Chaitanya Chandrodaya Nataka 8.23. You are the Supreme Personality God in Himself, therefore no one can understand your purpose. By your mercy you are touching me, although this is not sanctioned by the Vedas. Purport: a sannyasi is strictly forbidden to see the Vaisesika, the materialistic people. But Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, out of his boundless and causeless mercy, could show favor to anyone regardless of birth and position. You have come here specifically to deliver me. You are so merciful that you alone can deliver all fallen souls. Sri Narottam Das Thakur sings in his Prarthana, Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Doya Karamare Toma Vina Ke Dayalu Jagat Samsare Patita Pavana Hetu Tava Avatar Mo Sama Patita Prabhu Ma Paibe Ar. My dear Lord, please be merciful to me. Who can be more merciful than your Lordship within these three worlds? You appear as an incarnation just to reclaim the conditioned fallen souls. But I assure you that you will not find a soul more fallen than me. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's specific mission is to deliver fallen souls. Of course, in this age of Kali, there is hardly anyone who is not fallen according to the calculations of Vedic behavior. In his instructions to Rupa Goswami, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu described the so-called followers of Vedic religion in this way. Veda Nishna Madhe Ardheka Veda Mukesh Mane Veda Nishara Papa Kare Dharma Nahi Gane. So-called followers of Vedic principles simply accept the Vedas formally, but they act against the Vedic principles. This is symptomatic of this age of Kali. People claim to follow a certain type of religion, saying formally, I am Hindu, I am Muslim, I am Christian, or I am this or that. But actually no one follows the principles enunciated in religious scriptures. This is the disease of this age. Therefore the merciful Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has simply advised us to chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Rameva Kevalam, Kalau Nastyeva, 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 Gatiranyata. The Lord can deliver anyone and everyone, even though one may have fallen from the injunctions of revealed scriptures. This is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's special mercy. Consequently, he is known as Patita Pavana. Hari Hari, the deliverer of all fallen souls and the distributor of Chaitanya Charitamrita sets on the Marg itself. Text 39. It is the general practice of all saintly people to deliver the fallen. Therefore they go to people's houses, although they have no personal business there. Purport: a sannyasi is supposed to beg from door to door. He does not beg simply because he is hungry. His real purpose is to enlighten the occupants of every house by preaching Krishna consciousness. A sannyasi does not abandon his superior position and become a beggar just for the sake of begging. Similarly, a person in householder life may be very important, but he may also voluntarily take to the mendicant way of life. Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami were ministers, but they voluntarily accepted the mendicant's life in order to humbly preach Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's message. It is said about them, Tyakva Turnamashesha Mandalapati Shrinim Sadat Tuchavat Bhutva Dina Ganeshako Karunaya Kaupina Kantashrito. Although the Goswamis were very aristocratic, on the order of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they became mendicants just to deliver the fallen souls. One should also consider that those who engage in the missionary activities of the Krishna consciousness movement are under the guidance of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. They are not actually beggars. Their real business is to deliver fallen souls. Therefore, they may go from door to door just to introduce a book about Krishna consciousness, so that people can become enlightened by reading. Formerly, brahmacharis and sannyasis used to beg from door to door. At the present moment, especially in the Western countries, a person may be handed over to the police if he begs from door to door. In Western countries, begging is considered criminal. Members of the Krishna consciousness movement have no business begging. Instead, they work very hard to introduce some literature about Krishna consciousness so that people can read them and be benefited. But if one gives some contribution to a Krishna conscious man, he never refuses it. No minimum, but more importantly, no maximum. Mahadvichalaram nrinam grihinam dina chetasam. My dear Lord, sometimes great saintly persons go to the homes of householders, although these householders are generally low-minded. When a saintly person visits their homes, one can understand that it is for no other purpose than to benefit the householders. This is from Srimad Bhagavatam 10.8.4. Along with me, there are about 1,000 men, including the Brahmanas, and all of them appear to have had their hearts melted simply by seeing you. I hear everyone chanting the holy name of Krishna. Everyone's body is thrilled with ecstasy, and there are tears in everyone's eyes. My dear sir, according to your behavior and bodily features, you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is impossible for ordinary living beings to possess such transcendental qualities. Purport. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's bodily features were uncommon. Indeed, his body was extraordinary in its measurements. The measurements of his chest and the measurement of his forearms were the same. This is called Nyagroda Parimandala. As far as his nature is concerned, he was kind to everyone. No one but the Supreme Personality of Godhead can be kind to everyone. Therefore, the Lord's name is Krishna, all attractive. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 14.4, Krishna is the kind father of everyone. In every species of life, Sarva Yonishu, he is the original father, the seed giver, Bij Prada Pita. How then can he be unkind to any living entity? One may be a man, an animal, or even a tree, but the Lord is kind to everyone. That is God's qualification. I am equally kind to everyone. And he advises, Sarva Dharman Parityaja Mamekam Sharanam Braja. Give up all other engagements and simply surrender unto me. This instruction is meant not only for Arjuna, but for all living beings. Whoever takes advantage of this offer is immediately immune to all sinful activity and returns home, back to Godhead. While present on this planet, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu made the same offer. The Lord replied to Ramananda Roy, Sir, you are the best of the topmost devotees. Therefore, simply the sight of you has melted everyone's heart. Purport, unless one is a first-class devotee, he cannot be a preacher. A preacher is generally a topmost devotee, but in order to meet the general populace, he has to come to distinguish between devotees and non-devotees. Otherwise, an advanced devotee makes no such distinctions. Indeed, he always sees that everyone is engaged in the service of the Lord. When one engages in preaching work, he must distinguish between people and understand that some people are not engaged in devotional service of the Lord. The preacher then has to take compassion upon such innocent people who do not know how to worship the Lord. In Srimad Bhagavatam 11.2.45, the symptoms of a topmost devotee are described as follows. Sarva bhuteshu ya pasched bhagavat bhavamatmanaha bhutani bhagavatyatmani esha bhagavato tamaha. The advanced devotee sees that all living entities are part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Everyone is in Krishna, and Krishna is also within everyone. Such a vision is possible only for a person who is very advanced in devotional service. Although I am a Mayavadi sannyasi, a non-devotee, I am also floating in the ocean of love of Krishna simply by touching you, and what to speak of others. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya knew this would happen, and thus to rectify my heart, which is very hard, he asked me to meet you. In this way, each of them praised the qualities of the other, and both of them were pleased to see each other. At this time, a Brahmana Vaishnava, following the Vedic principles, came and offered obeisances. He fell flat before Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and invited him for lunch. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted the invitation, knowing the Brahmana to be a devotee, and slightly smiling, he spoke as follows to Ramananda Roy. Purport: Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted the invitation of the Vaishnava Brahmana. Even though one is a Brahmana strictly following the rules and regulations of Brahminical culture, if he is not a devotee, a follower of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, one should not accept his invitation. At the present moment, people have become so degraded that they do not even follow the Vedic principles, to say nothing of Vaishnava principles. They eat anything and everything, whatever they like. And therefore, the members of the Hare Krishna movement should be very cautious about accepting invitations. Text 50. I wish to hear from you about Lord Krishna. Indeed, my mind is inclined to desire this. Therefore, I wish to see you again. Ramananda replied, My Lord, although you have come to correct me, a fallen soul, my mind is not yet purified simply by seeing you. Please stay for 5 or 7 days and kindly cleanse my polluted mind. After that much time, my mind will certainly be pure. Although neither could tolerate separation from the other, Ramananda Roy nonetheless offered his obeisances to Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and departed. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then went to the house of the Brahmana who had invited him and took his lunch there. When the evening of that day arrived, both Ramananda Roy and the Lord were eager to meet each other again. After finishing his evening bath, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sat down and waited for Ramananda Roy to come. Then Ramananda Roy, accompanied by one servant, came to meet him. Purport: a Vaishnava who is supposed to be advanced in spiritual understanding, be he a householder or a sannyasi, must bathe 3 times a day, morning, noon, and evening. When one is engaged in the service of the deity, he must especially follow the principles of the Padma Purana and take regular baths. He should also, after bathing, decorate his body with 12 tilaks. Ramananda Roy approached Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and offered his respectful obeisances, and the Lord embraced him. Then they began to discuss Krishna in a secluded place. The word rahastane, in a secluded place, is very significant. Talks about Krishna and his pastimes, especially his pastimes in Vrindavan and his dealings with the gopis, are all very confidential. They are not subject matter for public discussion because those who have no understanding of the transcendental nature of Krishna's pastimes always commit great offenses. thinking Krishna to be an ordinary man, ordinary human being, and the gopis ordinary girls. Following the principle of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who never discussed the dealings between Krishna and the gopis publicly, devotees in the Krishna consciousness movement are enjoined not to discuss the pastimes of Lord Krishna in Vrindavan in public. For the general public, Sankirtan is the most effective method to awaken Krishna consciousness. If possible, one should discuss the principles enunciated in the Bhagavad Gita. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu followed this principle very strictly and discussed the philosophy of the Bhagavad Gita with learned scholars like Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and Prakashananda Saraswati. However, he taught the principles of the Bhakti cult to students like Sanatana Goswami and Rupa Goswami, and he discussed with Sri Ramananda Roy the topmost devotional dealings between Krishna and the gopis. For the general populace, he performed Sankirtan very vigorously. We must also follow these principles in preaching Krishna consciousness all over the world. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ordered Ramananda Roy recite a verse from the revealed scripture concerning the ultimate goal of life. Ramananda Roy replied, if one executes the prescribed duties of his social position, he awakens his original Krishna consciousness. Purport. In this connection, Sri Ramanujacharya states in the Vedartha Sangraha, where? That devotional service is naturally very dear to the living entity. Indeed, it is life's goal. This devotional service is supreme knowledge, or Krishna consciousness, and it brings detachment from all material activity. In the transcendental position, a living being can perfectly acknowledge the superiority of serving the Supreme Lord. The devotees attain the Supreme Lord only by devotional service. Having such knowledge, one engages in his occupational duty, and that is called Bhakti Yoga. By performing Bhakti Yoga, one can rise to the platform of pure devotional service. A great saint, the father of Srila Vyasadeva, Parashara Muni, has specifically mentioned that devotional service to the Lord can ultimately be awakened in human society by discharge of duties in accordance with the Varnashram system. The Supreme Personality of Godhead instituted Varnashrama Dharma to give human beings a chance to return home back to Godhead. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna, who is known in the Bhagavad Gita as Purushottama, the greatest of all personalities, personally came and declared that the institution of Varnashrama Dharma was founded by him. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita 4.13, Chaturvanyam maya shristam gunakarma vibhagasha tasya kartaram apimam vidya kartaram avyayam. Elsewhere in the Bhagavad Gita 18:45-46, the Lord says, Sway sway karmanya birata samsiddhim labate nara sakarma nirata siddhim yata vindati tashrinu yata pravritir bhutanam yena sarvam idam tatam sakarma natam abhyarcha siddhim vindati manava. Human society should be divided into 4 divisions: Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and correct. And everyone should always engage in his occupational duty. The Lord says that those engaged in their occupational duty can attain perfection simply by rendering loving devotional service to the Lord while executing their particular duty. Actually, the modern ideal of a classless society can be introduced only by Krishna consciousness. Let men perform their occupational duties and let them give their profits to the service of the Lord. In other words, one can attain to the perfection of life by discharging one's occupational duty and employing the results in the service of the Lord. This method is confirmed by great personalities like Bodhayana, Tanka, Dramita, Guhadev, Kapardi, and Baruchi. Who? Who do you have? Bodhayana, Tanka, Dramita, Guhadev, Kapardi, and Baruchi. They were all very much dedicated to discharging occupational duty and employing the results in service of the Lord. It is also confirmed in the Vedanta Sutra. Varna Shrama Charava Ta Purushena Parapuman Vishnu Aradyate Panta Nanya Tattoshakaranam. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu, is worshipped by the proper execution of prescribed duties in the system of Varna and Ashrama. There is no other way to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One must be situated in the institution of the 4 Varnas and Ashrams. So shall we stop there? Leave it at that? Keep going? Yes. Say more. If I know more, say more. This is a quotation from the Vishnu Purana 389, as stated by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his Amrita Pravaha Bhasha. The purport is that one can realize life's perfection simply by satisfying the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is also confirmed in Srimad Bhagavatam. Ata pumbir dvija shreshta vardashrama vibhagasha swanavistista dharmasya samsadir haritoshanam. O best among the twice born, it is therefore concluded that the highest perfection one can achieve by discharging the duties prescribed for one's own occupation according to caste divisions and orders of life is to please the personality of Godhead. Every man should perform his occupational duty in the light of his particular tendency. According to his abilities, one should accept a position in the Varnashrama institution. The divisions of Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra are natural divisions within society. Indeed, everyone has a prescribed duty according to the Varnashrama Dharma. Those who properly execute their prescribed duties live peacefully and are not disturbed by material conditions. The spiritual orders, Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, and Sannyas, are called ashramas. If one executes his prescribed duty in both the social and spiritual orders, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is satisfied. If one neglects his duties, however, he becomes a transgressor and a candidate for a hellish condition. Actually, we see that different people are engaged in different ways. Therefore, there must be divisions according to work. To attain perfection, one must make devotional service the center of life. In this way, one can awaken his natural instincts by work, association, and education. One should accept the Varnashrama divisions by qualification, not by birth. Unless this system is introduced, human activities cannot be systematically executed. The Brahmanas are the intellectuals who can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They are always engaged in the cultivation of knowledge. It does not matter whether one is born in India or outside India. Those who are naturally very heroic and who tend to rule over others are called Kshatriyas. Those who tend to produce food by agricultural methods, protect cows and other animals, and engage in trade are called Vaishyas or merchants. Those who are not sufficiently intelligent to be Brahmins, Kshatriyas, or Vaishyas are required to serve a master and are called Shudras. Thus, everyone can engage in the service of the Lord and awaken his natural Krishna consciousness. If a society does not function according to such natural divisions, the social orders become degraded. The conclusion is that the scientific method of Varnashrama Dharma should be adopted by society. Text 59. Prabhu kahe, eho haya, age kaha aro, roir kahe, Krishna karmarpana sarva sadhya saro. The Lord replied, this is external. You had better tell me of some other means. Ramananda Roy replied, to offer the results of one's activities to Krishna is the essence of all perfection. Text 60, Yat karoshi yadashnashi yasjuhosi dadasi yat yat tapasyasi kaunteya tat kurushva madarpanam. We'll take reflections or questions. Oh, it's Navina Nirada. He's right next to me. Go ahead.
Hare Krishna. It's very instructive to see how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu showed by his own example that is a culture of taking guidance and following the good advice of esteemed Vaishnavas. So first he took the permission to leave for South India tour, and then he took Sarvabhauma's advice to meet Ramananda Roy. So we should do the same, that before we embark on some venture or some journey, we take shelter under the guidance of mature Vaishnavas.
What an excellent point. It's a culture of guidance. And Mahaprabhu showed the example. Nice examples too you gave. Okay, let's see who's next. Mahendra Prabhu.
The point about Sankirtan, Prabhupada mentioned that for the general populace, that's for everyone, Sankirtan. And devotees, only devotees, advanced devotees can discuss the pastimes of Krishna in Vrindavan. And I just thought that it's such a perfect method, the Sankirtana. It's just working for everyone. It's not that those who are advanced, they stop Sankirtana, they say, oh, that's only for the outsiders. Because that's the process that gives prema. That prema sampach jadane swayam drag. Sanatana Goswami says, by Navan Sankirtan, which is the chief method of kirtan, prema is very quickly awoken. So that's the devotees, that's the way that they enter into the pastimes, so they can understand also by Nama Sankirtan.
By Nam Sankirtan.
Yeah. So it's
and
for
being
everyone.
Careful about not speaking the intimate pastimes in public.
Yeah.
He said you could talk about Bhagavad Gita.
General principles.
General principles. And do Harinam Sankirtan, give prasadam.
And one question I have about Prabhupada mentions here that one should perform his duty according to Varnashrama. If does not perform his duty, is a candidate for hellish life. So in our context, practically what will mean to not perform the duty or to neglect his duties?
Well, you should become a sannyasi and preach, be Brahminical and preach Krishna consciousness. And if you don't do that, it would be a transgression and everyone would be disappointed. Because it's your nature, right? So there's everyone has natural tendencies, so they should be engaged in Krishna service. What would it be to neglect them? It would be to go against one's nature and not engage in Krishna service. In other words, with the excuse of trying to do somebody else's duty, one may reduce one's service and not be very effective. I mean, Varnashram is really meant for helping organize society in such a way that everyone can be effective, and effective means they can become Krishna conscious. Interestingly, Krishna mentions in the 18th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita that one shouldn't abandon one's duty even if he can perform another's duty seemingly more perfectly. And he also says in the same context that every endeavor is covered with some sort of fault, just as fire is covered by smoke. And then Prabhupada gives a list that the Brahmanas, they have to perform rituals in which they might kill animals, so that's not very good. Kshatriyas, they go to war and kill people. Then Vaishyas, they say, for you I make no profit, and that's a lie. And Shudras, they have to follow a bad master. Whatever the master says, they just have to do it. But one of the main points Krishna makes in the Bhagavad Gita is that one should just remain steady and tolerant in one's duty in life so that one can take to Krishna consciousness. And if you switch from one thing to another, you get mental about it instead of just sticking to your prescribed duty. And of course, with the modern jumble that is modern society, in which it's difficult to tell exactly what people's natures are. We have some directives from Prabhupada about reestablishing Varnashrama. What I've noted is when there's actually a structure for raising children from the very beginning in the principles of Krishna consciousness, for instance in Gurukul, and having good association and getting trained in all the principles, it becomes more obvious. It's not as much of a jumble. So if we have that, it may be easier to understand, it will be easier to understand how people can take to a particular duty, be steady in it, and make advancement in Krishna consciousness. Let's see if there's other reflections. Madhav.
I had a question from text 45 where Ramananda Rai says, although I'm a Mayavadi sannyasi, he was a Mayavadi sannyasi, like Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya realized after he became a devotee about Ramananda Rai. So how come it says that although I'm a Mayavadi sannyasi?
Let's see.
Text 45.
Looking now. Although I am a Mayavadi sannyasi, a non-devotee, I am also floating in the ocean of love of Krishna simply by touching you, and what to speak of others. That is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu speaking?
Yes.
Yeah, because he took his sannyas from the Shankaracharya line. And so he makes that claim in many places that I'm simply a Mayavadi sannyasi. That's why Nityananda Prabhu broke his staff. He was like, you're not any kind of sannyasi. You're the Supreme Personality of God. What to speak of Mayavad? He broke his staff. Does that make sense?
I had another question. It was before.
Okay.
Maybe someone else can go, and then when I find it, I can.
Okay, sure. Let's see if there's anybody else. Yes.
Today's disappearance day of both Srila Raghunath Das Goswami and Srila Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami, along with Raghunath Bhatta Goswami also.
Wow. With folded hands and bowed head, may these great acharyas bless us so we'll have insight into the teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Thank you for considering our request. Om Tat Sat. Hare Krishna. But yes, Ekachakra Pran.
This section reminds me of the power of questions. You mentioned the other day that whoever's asking the questions is leading the conversation, and here we see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asking him to speak more and drawing so much more out of him. So I was just appreciating the power of inquiry.
Yeah, definitely.
A quick question.
Yes.
Do you have any questions that you keep ready for when you meet a great personality? Oftentimes when I meet a great devotee, I find myself at a loss for words. is there any recommendations on some good questions to ask?
I think it's more spontaneous. I don't keep them necessarily on a list or something, but when there's somebody speaking and whose presence Paramatma inspires me to think this person could probably answer the question, that I remember what it is or in the context that they're saying, but no, I don't keep a list. I mean, there are several places you notice all these flags. Some of them are extraordinary points that need more explanation. So I have those. But in some of the books, there's so many tags, then they become irrelevant because almost every point is covered. So you just have to depend on spontaneity and think to ask. Thanks for asking. Tree Shop.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Prabhu, to your point, I just thought that in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says pariprashnena seveya. So, like, just remembering that it's a way to open up and learn from the other person, like pariprashnena, by having that mindset that just asking a question with the humility maybe and service attitude is going to open up and have the person like shower knowledge on me. So maybe that's the attitude, and automatically I think question can appear with that attitude, maybe.
I get sometimes they give a class and someone will raise their hand and say, I've asked a lot of people this and I've been thinking this for a long time, and now I'm going to ask you what your opinion is. No pressure. Okay. Yes, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. Maharaj, I was reflecting on the Varnashram re-establishment, and like Prabhupada emphasizing a lot in Bhagavad Gita and here also. And I was reading one of the conversations that Prabhupada had in Washington DC, and a person asked him that as per my ashram, as per my intuition, can I decide to become a sannyasi? As per my intuition, can I decide to become a gresta? And Prabhupada was very clear that you cannot decide based on your intuition, because that's still what you have spent or experienced, you're reflecting on that. Whereas if you want to establish and follow one ashram, you should reach to a guru or a Vaishnava. Prabhupada was very clear in stating that out in that conversation. So I thought I'll reflect on that.
Don't self-prescribe.
Yeah.
Don't self-prescribe, self-medicate, or self-medicate. Yes, Patita Pavana. A similar point that what Navina made, but it's a culture of guidance. And we do sometimes find those who enter the community, the immediate or greater community, who are more self-directing and they don't want to take instruction from others or elders, and they cause some disturbance because they feel that they know better. And I generally find that they go off the rails, as that tendency to not want to follow authority, lingering from time immemorial, tends to pull them off track and think that they can save the world by themselves or start their own thing. And Prabhupada emphasized how much we need to be humble and try to stick together and take guidance. Please go ahead.
I am feeling a sense of awe towards the character of Vasudeva Datta, and just how he had the different sores with the worms, and he was even
Vasudeva the leper.
Yeah, the leper, and how he wouldn't even let if a worm had fallen out, he wouldn't even let it stay on the ground. He would bring it back to where it was and put it back in his body. And I just thought that's so profound, and shamelessly may compare to myself, but just thinking how myself, as anything comes in proximity to my body or something, I push it away or try to get it away from me. But it's just quite amazing, this personality. And then later his prayers to Lord Chaitanya as well.
Yeah, we don't want to imitate also. False, like artificial imitation. Like if a bear comes and you'll say, well, he needs a snack and well, the Vasudeva and Devaki, when Kamsa's threatening to kill his sister, he mentions that one's first duty is to try to stay alive, protect the body as far as possible because you need it. So that's there also. Yes, Madhya Founder's question.
I think in text 37, in the purport also it says that but Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, out of his boundless and causeless mercy, could show favor to anyone regardless of birth and position. And also Ramananda Rai was in the government position and all, but he met him, but he refused to meet King Prataparudra.
Well, for a little while he refused to meet him. But it's a good point. It's a fair point because Ramananda Roy was a politician, and at that time Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was eager to meet him, but by context he was inspired to do so. And actually Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya extracted a promise from him. They said, okay, you're going to leave, but promise me one thing, that you'll meet with Ramananda Roy. So he was primed for that. And with Prataparudra, he extended him an extraordinary amount of mercy, but as is mentioned in the text itself, he wanted to publicly show the etiquette that a sannyasi shouldn't associate with a king. It's a very nice, interesting point you caught there. Thank you. And now we're going to, we have a couple more. Nitya Tarangani, please go ahead.
Yes, Guru Maharaj. We have more people join online from, we have our own Adri Raj Das and Chetan and Vaibhav. Preeti Purna Mataji. And there are a couple of reflections and questions from them. The first one is from Preeti Purna Mataji. Her question is, are Brahmanas not favorable to devotees many times because it threatens their livelihood? Sometimes devotees lack kindness in their dealings and may be insensitive, which leads to some differences.
That sounded like two different things. Yes, those who are of the Brahmana caste may feel threatened by devotees. That was abundantly apparent in the case of the Brahmanas who took exception to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's preaching. It's a natural psychological, sociological phenomena that those in positions of power, would speak of absolute power, tend to want to hold on to it. It's called Michel's laws, iron laws of oligarchy. That even well-intentioned people, once they're given some power, they tend to consolidate the power rather than do good for other people. And you can see in religious systems throughout history, people who are given the top spot often then forget that they were supposed to do something for other people, and they just try to hold on to their little niche, their little chip in the game, and they don't want to lose it. And so when a reformer like Srila Bhaktisiddhanta comes along, and that's what happened, he was saying what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said. It's like, you don't have to give huge donations to these brahmanas to get some ritual done. You just have to chant Hare Krishna. And he also flipped everything on its head because he has Kiba Vipra Kiba Nashi Shudra Konanoi Ye Krishna Tapaveta Se Guru Hoy. Knowledge is available to everybody, and if you become a conversant in it, then you can also become a guru. And so the Smarta Brahmins tried to kill Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. They attacked him. So yes, that happens. They can become envious. And the second part, I didn't see how it was connected, but could you read that second part again?
Yes. Sometimes devotees lack kindness in their dealings and may be insensitive, which leads to some differences.
I don't know about some differences, but devotees should be very kind and considerate in their dealings, leave everyone with a good impression. Be a kind friend to all living beings, and impeccable in speech and in dealing with others. That's the hallmark of a devotee. If one has to speak directly about a philosophical point, that's another point. But as Prabhupada said, when the devotees first came to India, that is the Western devotees, and they were assailed by many people asking them, what do you think of this Swami, what do you think of that Swami? And when they asked Prabhupada, how should we address these questions, Prabhupada said, assail the philosophy and not the person, no ad hominem, meaning that don't say, oh, such and such Swami is bogus, but say, Prabhupada taught him to say, what's his philosophy? And then talk about the philosophy, not the person. That's just an example of how one should be sensitive, even while opposing or pointing out the flaws in somebody's thinking process. You should be very careful. So devotees should not be insensitive. A devotee is very sensitive. If somebody's insensitive, there's something wrong. And Krishna will correct that. Because I've seen it even on book distribution. People who are insensitive, they can't continue it. If you're insensitive and you mistreat people in public and leave people with a bad impression, Krishna will take you off the field. He'll make you lose your taste, or he'll make some excuse that, well, anyway, I got other places to go, and you can't remain in the service. It's meant for those who are very careful not to offend just devotees, but it's an offense to mistreat living entities in general. So if we make those offenses to living beings by mistreating them, then it's not a devotional quality. It's the opposite. Om Tat Sat. Okay, Nitya Tarangani, anything else?
Maharaj, Guru Maharaj, I have 3 more. Do we have time?
Well, it all depends on how quickly we answer the questions. Let's see if I can do it 10 seconds or less for every, if it's a question. Go.
The first question is it a good reference to read Canto 7, Chapter 11 to Chapter 15 for instructions on different varnas and ashramas?
Of the Chaitanya Charitamrita?
Srimad Bhagavatam.
Yes. Okay, next question.
A person born in a family of Vaishnava merchants has a natural inclination for seeking the truth and for devotional service to Godhead. What should such person do?
They should practice the tenets of Krishna consciousness, become initiated, and surrender to Krishna, give their whole life to Krishna. 3.
Sorry. Okay, the last one is from Satya Sankalpa Prabhu. He has a reflection, not a question. From the pastimes of Mahaprabhu at Jayada Narsimha Temple and glorifying Sri Narsimhadev during his travels in South India, in order to spread Krishna conscious movement, I was reminded on how Srila Prabhupada very thoughtfully inculcated worship and devotion to Lord Narsimhadev, and depending on his mercy to spread Krishna consciousness as well.
Hare Hare! And that brings us to our Gayatri break. We'll come back here at 20 minutes after the hour. We'll see you then. Vanchakalpadrishcha kripasindhame vachapatitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha Nantakoti Vaishwarniki